It was supposed to be the happiest time of my life. I was just a few days away from marrying the woman I thought was my soulmate. Sarah and I had been together for almost 5 years, and the thought of spending the rest of my life with her filled me with excitement. Everything seemed perfect. Or at least, that's what I thought. We had spent countless hours planning every detail of our wedding. From the venue to the guest list, to the flowers, everything was just the way we wanted it, or so I believed. Sarah seemed so invested in every little thing, from the color of the napkins to the font on the invitations. She would light up whenever we talked about the future, or at least she used to. Looking back, there were small signs that things weren't as perfect as they seemed, but I was too blinded by love to see them. We'd been busy planning the wedding, so any little issues that popped up, I just brushed off as stress. I remember the times when Sarah would be distracted or distant, but I always chalked it up to the pressures of planning a wedding. I should have noticed when she started coming home late from work more often than usual, or when she began taking her phone calls in the other room. But I didn't think much of it. After all, we were about to start our life together. Why would I suspect anything was wrong? I was a fool for not realizing that something much bigger was happening behind the scenes. It all started with a knock on my door 3 days before the wedding. I was at home, finalizing some last-minute details for the ceremony when I heard it. The knock wasn't urgent or loud, just a simple, almost hesitant knock. When I opened the door, I found a man standing there, dressed in a cheap suit and holding a plain manila envelope. He had an air of professionalism about him, but there was something in his eyes that hinted at the unpleasantness of his task. "Are you Alex?" he asked, his voice flat, as if he'd asked that same question 1,000 times before. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, feeling a little uneasy. "Who are you?" "I'm a private investigator. I have some information you might want to see." He handed me the envelope, and my heart started to race. What could this be about? My mind raced through 100 possibilities, but none of them prepared me for what I was about to discover. I invited him inside, my hands trembling slightly as I opened the envelope. Inside, there was a small USB drive and a few sheets of paper. The investigator sat down across from me and motioned for me to plug the USB into my laptop. His expression was unreadable, and I couldn't tell if that was a good or bad sign. "What's this about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a part of me that didn't want to know, that wanted to push the envelope away and pretend it had never arrived. But another part of me, the part that had been ignored for too long, knew that whatever was on that USB would change everything. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at me with a mixture of pity and discomfort. "It's better if you just listen to it yourself," he finally said. I hesitated for a moment before doing as he suggested. I inserted the USB drive into my laptop, and a single audio file appeared on the screen. I clicked on it, and soon, I heard a voice I knew all too well. It was Sarah, my fiancée. At first, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was just a normal conversation, but then the tone of her voice changed. She was talking to someone I didn't recognize, and they were discussing the wedding. But it wasn't the wedding I was expecting. It was a plan to use me. "I'll marry this fool, become rich, and then we can live the life we want," Sarah's voice said, clear as day. My heart dropped into my stomach. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I was about to marry, the woman I loved with all my heart, was planning to use me for my money and then run off with someone else. "Who's the guy?" I asked the investigator, my voice barely above a whisper. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what I was hearing with the woman I thought I knew. How long had this been going on? Who was this person she was conspiring with? 1,000 questions flooded my mind, each one more painful than the last. "We're still looking into that, but we believe he's someone she works with. We've been following them for a few weeks now, and it looks like they've been seeing each other behind your back for quite some time." I couldn't breathe. My entire world was crumbling around me, and I didn't know what to do. The investigator continued talking, but his words were just a blur. All I could think about was Sarah, and how she had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Every memory of us together now felt tainted, every smile, every kiss, every promise she had made. It was all a lie. After the shock of the audio wore off, I found myself sitting in silence, staring at the wall. The investigator had left, and I was alone with my thoughts. I felt a wave of emotions crashing over me: anger, sadness, betrayal, and a deep, burning need for revenge. Sarah had planned to use me, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. But how could I get back at her? How could I make her feel the same pain she had inflicted on me? I sat there, thinking, plotting, until a plan began to take shape in my mind. It was bold, risky even, but I was determined to see it through. I would expose her for who she really was, and I would do it in a way that she would never forget. The first thing I did was reach out to the investigator. I needed more information on this guy she was seeing. If I was going to expose her, I needed all the evidence I could get. The investigator promised to dig deeper and get back to me as soon as possible. In the meantime, I started putting my plan into motion. I knew Sarah was the kind of person who thrived on appearances. She loved the idea of being the perfect bride, having the perfect wedding, and living the perfect life. So, I decided to use that against her. I would let her believe that everything was still going according to plan, that I was blissfully unaware of her betrayal. And then, when the time was right, I would pull the rug out from under her. The wedding was just a few days away, but I had to act fast. I reached out to a few close friends and told them what was going on. They were shocked, but they agreed to help me. We came up with a plan to expose Sarah in the most public way possible. 2 days before the wedding, I got a call from the investigator. He had found out where Sarah and her affair partner were planning to meet. It was a hotel, not far from where we lived. My heart raced as I listened to the details. This was my chance to catch them in the act. The next day, I set everything up. I booked a room at the same hotel and made sure I had all the equipment I needed to record the whole thing. I was going to catch them red-handed, and I was going to make sure everyone knew about it. When the day finally arrived, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. I wasn't sure what I would find, but I knew that whatever happened, there was no turning back. I made my way to the hotel and checked into my room. Then, I waited. It didn't take long before I saw them. Sarah and her affair partner walked into the hotel, laughing and holding hands like they didn't have a care in the world. I felt a surge of anger, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was it. This was my moment. I followed them to their room, making sure to keep my distance so they wouldn't notice me. Once they were inside, I waited a few minutes before making my move. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and then burst into the room. They were caught off guard, completely surprised to see me standing there. Sarah's face went pale, and she started stammering, trying to come up with an excuse, but it was too late. I had everything on camera. "What the hell are you doing here?" she finally managed to say, her voice shaking. "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, my voice cold and steady. "But I think we both know the answer to that." The guy she was with tried to say something, but I cut him off. "Save it. I've got everything I need right here," I said, holding up the camera. "I know about your little plan. The wedding, the money, everything." Sarah looked like she was about to faint. "Alex, please, let me explain," she begged, but I wasn't interested in her excuses. "There's nothing to explain," I said. "It's over." With the footage in hand, I knew it was time for the final act of my plan. I left the hotel without another word, ignoring Sarah's pleas and the guy's threats. As I drove home, I felt a strange sense of calm. The worst was over, but the best was yet to come. When I got back to my place, I started setting up for the live stream. Instagram was the perfect platform for what I had in mind. It was public, immediate, and I knew that once I started the stream, there would be no way for Sarah to spin the story in her favor. I spent the next few hours preparing everything, making sure the footage was ready to go and that I had everything I needed to tell my side of the story. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about making sure that everyone knew the truth. I wanted to expose Sarah for the liar and manipulator she was. When the time came, I hit the button to go live. Within minutes, people started tuning in. Friends, family, even people I didn't know. They were all curious to see what was going on. I didn't waste any time. I started by telling everyone about the wedding, how excited I had been, how much I had loved Sarah. And then, I told them about the investigator, the audio, the hotel. The comments started pouring in, some in disbelief, others in support. But I wasn't done yet. I played the audio for everyone to hear, the same audio that had shattered my world just days before. The reaction was immediate. People were shocked, outraged, some even disgusted. But I didn't stop there. I ended the stream by playing the footage from the hotel, showing Sarah and her affair partner caught in the act. The final nail in the coffin. By the time I ended the stream, the damage was done. Sarah's reputation was in ruins, and there was no coming back from it. I had exposed her for who she really was, and in doing so, I had finally gotten my revenge. The fallout from the live stream was swift and brutal. Word spread like wildfire, and soon everyone in our social circle knew what had happened. Sarah tried to do damage control, but it was too late. The evidence was undeniable, and no amount of apologies or explanations could undo the damage. Our wedding was, of course, cancelled. I didn't bother to tell her in person. I just sent a message to her and her family, letting them know that the wedding was off and that I wanted nothing more to do with her. She tried to reach out to me, leaving voicemails and sending texts, but I ignored them all. There was nothing left to say. The days that followed were a blur. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. I had gotten my revenge, but it didn't make the pain go away. I was still heartbroken, still devastated by the betrayal. But at least I had the satisfaction of knowing that she would never be able to do this to anyone else. As for the guy she was with, I didn't hear much about him. He disappeared from the scene pretty quickly after the live stream. I guess he realized that his reputation was just as damaged as Sarah's and decided to cut his losses. I spent a lot of time reflecting on everything that had happened. I wondered how I had been so blind, how I had missed the signs that something was wrong. But in the end, I realized that there was no point in dwelling on the past. All I could do was move forward and try to rebuild my life. Months passed, and slowly, I started to put my life back together. I threw myself into work, focused on my friends and family, and tried to find joy in the little things. It wasn't easy, but with time, the pain began to fade. One day, out of the blue, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in a long time. It was an old friend, someone I had lost touch with over the years. They had seen the live stream and wanted to reach out to see how I was doing. We started talking, and before long, we were meeting up for coffee, catching up on old times. It was nice to have someone to talk to, someone who knew me before all of this had happened. It felt like a fresh start, and I needed that more than anything. As the months turned into a year, I realized that I had finally moved on. The scars were still there, but they didn't hurt as much as they used to. I had learned a lot from the experience, about myself, about trust, and about the kind of person I wanted to be. Looking back, I don't regret what I did. It was messy, it was painful, but it was also necessary. Sarah had tried to use me, to manipulate me for her own gain, and I wasn't going to let that happen. I took control of the situation, and in doing so, I was able to find closure. Now, when I think about that time in my life, I don't feel anger or sadness. I just feel a sense of relief. I'm free from the lies, free from the betrayal, and most importantly, I'm free to live my life on my own terms. And as for Sarah? I don't know where she is now, and honestly, I don't care. She's no longer a part of my life, and that's exactly how I want it to be. The road to healing was long and difficult, but in the end, I came out stronger. I learned that sometimes, the best revenge is simply moving on and living your life to the fullest. And that's exactly what I intend to do. As time went on, I noticed a shift in myself. I was no longer consumed by the anger and hurt that had once dominated my thoughts. Instead, I found myself focusing on the future, on the possibilities that lay ahead. I started to dream again, to think about the things I wanted to achieve, the places I wanted to go. I decided to take a trip, something I'd been putting off for years. It was a chance to get away from everything, to clear my mind and start fresh. I packed my bags and set off on an adventure, not knowing exactly where I was headed, but excited to find out. The trip turned out to be exactly what I needed. I met new people, saw new places, and experienced things I never thought I would. It was liberating to be away from the memories, to be in a place where no one knew what had happened. I could just be myself, without the weight of the past dragging me down. During my travels, I had a lot of time to think. I thought about the person I used to be, the person I had become, and the person I wanted to be moving forward. I realized that I didn't want to be defined by what had happened. I didn't want to be the guy who got cheated on and then got revenge. I wanted to be more than that. When I returned home, I was different. I felt lighter, more at peace with everything. I knew that I still had a long way to go, but I was ready for whatever came next. I was ready to start over, to build a life that was truly my own. I decided to make some changes in my life. I moved to a new city, got a new job, and even picked up a few new hobbies. It was all part of my plan to create a fresh start, to leave the past behind and focus on the future. It wasn't always easy. There were still days when the memories would creep back in, when the hurt would resurface. But each time, I reminded myself of how far I'd come, of the progress I'd made. And with time, those days became fewer and farther between. I also started dating again, slowly at first. I was cautious, not wanting to rush into anything, but also open to the idea of finding someone new. I knew that I couldn't let what had happened with Sarah hold me back forever. I deserved to be happy, to find someone who would love me for who I was. It took some time, but eventually, I met someone who made me believe in love again. She was kind, understanding, and most importantly, she was honest. We took things slow, getting to know each other, building trust. It was a new beginning, and I was determined to do it right this time. As our relationship grew, I found myself opening up more, sharing parts of myself that I had kept hidden for so long. It was scary at first, but also liberating. I realized that I didn't have to carry the weight of the past with me anymore. I could let it go and focus on the present. Looking back on everything that had happened, I can honestly say that I'm grateful for the experience. It taught me so much about myself, about life, and about what really matters. It was a painful lesson, but one that I needed to learn. Today, I'm in a good place. I'm happy, I'm loved, and most importantly, I'm at peace with myself. I know that there will always be challenges, but I also know that I'm strong enough to face them. I've been through the worst, and I've come out the other side stronger and wiser. As for Sarah, I don't think about her much anymore. She's just a distant memory, a chapter in my life that's long since closed. I hope she's found whatever it was she was looking for, but I know now that it wasn't me. And that's okay. I don't need her validation or her approval. I know my worth, and I know that I'm better off without her. The journey to get here wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I've learned that life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and that the only thing we can control is how we respond to them. I've learned that sometimes, the best thing you can do is let go of the past and embrace the future. And so, that's what I do every day. I wake up with a sense of purpose, with a heart that's open to whatever comes next. I'm no longer defined by what happened to me, but by how I chose to move forward. And that's the greatest victory of all. In the end, the story isn't about revenge or betrayal. It's about growth, healing, and the power of resilience. It's about finding the strength to rebuild after everything falls apart, and the courage to believe in love and happiness again. It's about knowing that no matter how dark things may seem, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. It's about embracing that light and using it to guide you forward, no matter how many times you've been knocked down. My new life has become a testament to the fact that even the most devastating experiences can lead to profound personal growth. I've found joy in places I never expected, and I've discovered a resilience within myself that I didn't know I had. Each new day is an opportunity to live fully and authentically, and I'm determined to make the most of it. I've become more involved in causes that matter to me, giving back to the community and helping others who have faced challenges similar to mine. I've used my experience to support people who are struggling, to offer them hope and a listening ear. It's been incredibly rewarding to know that I can make a positive difference in someone else's life. As I look back on everything that happened, I realize that it was a turning point. It was a painful and harsh reality check, but it pushed me to reassess what really matters to me. I've learned to value honesty, integrity, and genuine connections above all else. The relationships I have now are built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect, and they mean more to me than anything. My career has also taken on new dimensions. I've pursued opportunities that align with my passions and interests, and I've found fulfillment in doing work that not only supports me but also aligns with my values. It's been a journey of rediscovery, and I'm grateful for the chance to start anew. In my personal life, I've learned to cherish the simple moments. Whether it's a quiet evening at home with loved ones, a walk in the park, or a spontaneous adventure, I've found beauty in the everyday. Life is no longer about the grand gestures or the perfect appearances, it's about the genuine experiences and the connections we build along the way. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that forgiveness is for me, not for the other person. It's about freeing myself from the chains of resentment and anger that can hold me back. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what happened, but it's about letting go of the emotional burden so I can move forward with a lighter heart. I've also learned to be kinder to myself. The journey has been tough, and there have been times when I've doubted myself or felt overwhelmed by the weight of the past. But through it all, I've discovered that it's important to treat myself with compassion and understanding. I'm human, and I'm allowed to make mistakes and learn from them. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the future. I have dreams and aspirations that go beyond the confines of my past experiences. I want to travel, to explore new cultures, to continue learning and growing as a person. I want to build a life that reflects who I truly am, not who I was told I should be. The journey of healing and rebuilding has taught me that there is no single path to happiness or success. It's a personal journey, unique to each individual, and it's shaped by our choices and actions. For me, it's been about embracing change, facing my fears, and daring to dream again. As I write this, I'm filled with a sense of peace and hope. I know that life will continue to have its ups and downs, but I'm confident that I have the strength and resilience to navigate whatever comes my way. I've learned that I am capable of far more than I ever thought possible, and that my past doesn't define me. In the end, the most important thing is to live authentically and to cherish the moments that matter. It's about finding joy in the journey, embracing the lessons learned, and forging ahead with courage and hope. The story of my past is just one chapter in a much larger narrative, and I'm excited to see where the next chapters will take me. So here's to the future, full of promise, opportunity, and the endless possibilities that lie ahead. I'm ready to embrace whatever comes my way, knowing that I have the strength and resilience to face it head-on. Life is a beautiful, unpredictable journey, and I'm grateful for every step of the way. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. If you're facing your own challenges, remember that you're not alone, and that there is hope even in the darkest times. Keep moving forward, stay true to yourself, and never stop believing in the possibility of a brighter future.